I am Dr. Jacob A. Chapon, and I'd like to discuss the human genome. The genome is basically all of the biological information that an organism needs to build and maintain itself. The DNA of that organism contains the genes that are required to do that, because genes basically express or have the information within them to build the proteins necessary to, again, build and maintain the organism. There are approximately 25,000 genes in the DNA that does that. There are a lot more, believe me, but let's go with that figure. You should understand also that the DNA is composed of nucleotids. The nucleotids contain the information that is utilized to build and maintain the organism. There are billions of these nucleotids. The language of the nucleotid are only 4 chemical bases. The chemical bases are adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. The order of these bases really are the language in which the genes communicate with the body to build the proteins necessary to create life. The proteins are in the form of tissue, enzymes, hormones, all designed to create life. I want to discuss the Genome Project. This is a project of the U.S. Department of Health to identify the gene sequences in the DNA. They have identified approximately 195,000 of these genes and gene sequences. Very important for the understanding of longevity, disease, and the treatment of disease. It should be understood that there was another project that was developed by a consortium of international scientific agencies through multiple countries called the HapMap project. And what they did was identify the genetic variances or the gene variances or the single nucleotide polymorphism that exists in the genome. What that means is genetic changes that exist. They were able to identify 190,000 of these genetic changes, which is very important in many ways. These genetic changes in the base sequences order, let's say the base order of the DNA, are related to good genes and they are related to bad genes. The good genes, there has been a major breakthrough in the development of a gene microarray chip that has identified various important sequences in the genes and has made it possible to identify genes and what they express. The good genes are genes such as the TERT gene, which essentially affects the ability of the organism to utilize the telomere for longevity. What it does is it prevents or helps the telomere, which is something that you should look up. At the end of the gene that determine longevity. This prevents the shortening of the telomere in a fashion whereby it will prevent the antioxidants or oxidants, prevent the oxidants in the system from breaking down the DNA and creating the aging process. This helps longevity. There is also another gene that has been determined through this special chip process, the SERT gene, which is related to longevity in a certain way, the cert gene, by increasing the serotonin in the brain, and this affects happiness, this affects optimism, and of course, optimism and happiness is a very important part of longevity.